to see why Ben Carson could lie about our history is very easy when you look at the fact that he tried to revise his own history, and people are going to say, oh, the political story was debunked and this and this and this. Well, the thing is, Fox News did similar reporting, and you can see that Dr. Carson got very hostile when CNN confronted him, and Dr. Carson also lied about attending a certain class at Yale, and so this is not the first time that Dr. Carson has done certain things. This is not the first time he's tried to revise people's history, whether it's his own history or whether it's our history. For example, one of the big ones was that he obviously blamed us during the Holocaust for not being armed, and he also said, well, because people were not armed during the Holocaust, there was little resistance. Never mind that the Germans and Ukrainians and others, with few exceptions, and even some Jews, willingly collaborated with the Nazis, and never mind that there were uprisings, and never mind that Herschel Greenspan was murdered for trying to kill a Nazi, and never mind that at the Soviet part of the Holocaust, for example, I had cousins who died at Augustov, and their bodies had never been found. And in terms of the pyramids, oh, they were grain storage things. When the pyramids have proven to be temples, and even Wikipedia says the following. This is Wikipedia of all places, and what they say is this, and they're so two-faced about it, because on one hand, they like to say that certain things in the Bible did not happen. On the other hand, they pretty much support anything that's anti-Messianic and anti-Karaite, and this is what they say. So if you click on the Egyptian pyramids, they talk about how the pyramids were tombs, and that's not the part that I'm talking about necessarily. I'm talking about the part you would think it would be in this article that was probably in another one, so I'm going to have to look at it really quickly. And of course, this is where Google comes in handy. And a lot of people complain, well, just Google it and this and this and this. When people ask, what's your source? Well, sometimes it is as easy as just Googling the source. Other times you would expect the person to have the integrity to cite it, especially when they say, oh, this and this and this and this, and most people aren't just gonna, have time to Google it or have whatever wherewithal. Okay, history of the Jews in Egypt. I knew that it was somewhere. Okay, history of the Jews in Egypt, and talks about the building of the pyramids. It says, historically, there were no Jews in Bronze Age Egypt, the setting of Exodus, or, so they say, and long before that, of the pyramids' erection, because there were no Jews at all until the rise of the kingdom of Judah in the Iron Age. Israelites first appear in the archaeological record on the Meretta stele from 1208 to 3 BC, right at the end of the Bronze Age. A reasonably Bible-friendly interpretation is that they were a federation of Habiro tribes of the hill country around the Jordan River. Presumably, this federation consolidated into the kingdom of Israel, and Judah split from that during the Dark Age that followed the Bronze Age. The Bronze Age term Habiro was more general than the biblical Hebrew. It referred simply to Levantine nomads of any religion or ethnicity. Mesopotamian, Hittite, Canaanite, and Egyptian sources discuss them largely as bandits, mercenaries, and slaves. Certainly there were some Habiro slaves in Egypt, but native Egyptian kingdoms were not heavily slave-based. And the thing is, too, like, even Wikipedia tries to hem in all the issue because they say, well, there were no Jews and this and this. Well, Jew is a retroactively applied term because even though Jews were not called Jews yet, everybody knew that the Messiah would come from Judah, and now they're even saying, well, there were Israelites, and okay, there were Habiru tribes there, and this and this and this. So even Wikipedia, who would try to hem and haw around it and discount the biblical account, are saying, well, wait a minute, there were Jews in Egypt, and the Jews may have built the pyramid, and they say, well, there were no Jews during the Bronze Age, and this and this and this, and oh, the Egyptians aren't going to talk about the Exodus and this, and the thing is, and check this out too, it says Bronze Age, Near East, and it talks about the Levant, and it says that the Bronze Age ended in 1200 BC, so quite easily, perhaps for lack of a better term, we need to look at the way we've dated chronology in the Bible and realize that in terms of the dating, the fault is with us. And so even Wikipedia, who tries to hem and haw around the issue, is saying, you know what? The tombs for the pharaohs could have been built by Jews after all. And so Dr. Carson and others who are trying to brush the narrative, I shouldn't use that term narrative, I should use account, because of course when you use narrative it implies that something is not true in a lot of cases. Anyway, my point being, so when Dr. Carson tries to revise Jewish history, it's very clear that while he was able to revise our history, it's very clear that he'd already been an expert at revising his own. So now I'm getting a fuller picture, and now it's like, oh, okay, so he was able to say that he had gotten his scholarship to West Point and this and this and this, and he changed his story quite a few times and had already gotten hostile with CNN anyway, and then he says that he attended a class that didn't even exist at Yale, and now it's like, okay, if he's able to do that to his own history, he's clearly able to say, well, the tombs were actually grain storage things that Joseph would have used, and oh, had the Jews been armed, and as I said, never mind that the Nazis would have banned arms for Jews anyway, and that the Germans and Ukrainians willingly collaborated with the Nazis. So the more you understand about things and the more you realize that this has been a pattern for quite some time, the more you can see why Ben Carson, again, was able to revise the history of Jews. He was working on revising his own history, and you can see why Ben Carson said something completely anti-Semitic, because he was already trying to work on revising the Bible. So there's that, and what else do I got to say?